Daniel Ricciardo has had a rough few years. The announcement that he wouldn't be racing next season was a relief to some, but his performance at the United States Grand Prix had many wishing that he had pulled the cord already. So how did Australia sink to a sad, painful new low? And what are his options for next year that could get him back to the top of the sport? Stay tuned for all that, plus more F1 news coming up. First up, why did Ricciardo feel like a passenger at McLaren? When Daniel Ricciardo left Red Bull in 2018, most agreed that it was because his new teammate Max Verstappen was quickly closing in on him. On top of that, Verstappen was assuming his place as the new prodigy of Red Bull and has gone on to live up to those expectations. But while he may have felt like number 2 there, he has revealed that he felt like a passenger at McLaren differently. Since the beginning of 2021, when Ricciardo first jumped into a McLaren, he has struggled to figure out the car's characteristics. McLaren's design philosophy just doesn't seem to gel with Ricciardo's driving style, and he has said that his younger teammate might have an advantage because he's had less experience with different F1 cars. This has sometimes made Ricciardo feel like a passenger in the car. He said, "I just feel like I've worked with such little grip that no amount of talent is gonna get the job done." His performance at the Mexican Grand Prix was somewhat of a redemption, where he lit the track on fire.
This is now Daniel Ricciardo's. It's been coming for a while. Seemed to have more straight line speed with that DRS. It's worth
gunning from 11th on the grid to P7 in front of Lando Norris and Esteban Ocon. It proved that he still has what it takes to be competitive, but unfortunately, it could be too little too late. His contract with McLaren has already been terminated for next year, and he's scrambling to find his place in the sport. But McLaren has offered him options. Even though Ricciardo's axing from McLaren was a bombshell in the sport, the divorce was pretty civilized. McLaren CEO Zak Brown said he was still a massive Ricciardo fan, but things weren't working.
Yeah. It's so small, it's just frustrating.
Brown even offered him a place in McLaren's IndyCar team, but Ricciardo refused. Despite his famous love for America, he wants to stay in Formula 1. They have left the door open to staying with McLaren as a reserve driver. Team principals Andrea Seidel said it would be possible for Ricciardo to stay with them, but they hadn't had that discussion yet. For now, though, Seidel clarified that their priority is their primary drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. In particular, Piastri will be under a microscope because his entry into the sport was as dramatic as you could imagine. McLaren and Alpine fought over the youngster, which was eventually settled in the contract recognition board, with the decision going McLaren's way. After already burning a bridge before his debut, he will be in the hot seat to perform next year. But would Ricciardo want to hang around the workplace he was just ousted from? Can you imagine rocking up to work and waiting for your replacement to fall ill to get into the car?
Lando Norris now behind Daniel Ricciardo, so the two McLarens swapping places.
Next, Ricciardo admitted to getting help last year. The 20 drivers who line up on the grid each year are some of the best in the world, and the difference in technical skill is often so small that it comes down to 2 things: the machinery they're given and their mentality. They may not have much control over the car's performance, but Ricciardo has tried to address his mentality by getting help from a professional. In an interview with the Daily Mail, the Australian revealed that he had reached out to a psychologist this year to try and find his form again. He said, "Last year affected me a little bit too much. I wouldn't be my usual bubbly self."
Great racing, mate. Great overtaking. Really exciting to watch. Okay. Cheers, guys.
It started to spill over into his personal life, and he was reluctant to hang with his friends. That's why he started seeing a psychologist, thinking it helped him gain a new perspective. This decision was key to Ricciardo's resilience this year, but he was hit with another blow mid-season when McLaren tore up his contract.
He left Red Bull, he went to Renault, he's gone to McLaren, he's going to get the victory now.
Instead of seeing his deal out until the end of 2023, McLaren decided to pay him out and swap him for a younger Australian Oscar Piastri. And despite his lack of results, Ricciardo said that the news was still unexpected. Now he's staring down the barrel of his prospects. With seats on other competitive already sealed, his only choice might be to take a reserve driver role and hope he can climb back into the cockpit sometime in the future.
Radio check. That's loud and clear. Starting in shape 4.
Up next, how come Lewis Hamilton doesn't want Ricciardo at Mercedes? And why doesn't Jenson Button think Ricciardo should take a step down? So don't go anywhere. Is Ricciardo really too talented for Mercedes? Almost every driver on the grid has said they believe Ricciardo deserves a spot in Formula 1, but Lewis Hamilton doesn't think the Australian should lower his role in any team. There have been rumors swirling around the paddock of Ricciardo taking a reserve driver role at Mercedes, and Toto Wolff has confirmed that they are in talks. The Silver Arrow star driver Lewis Hamilton doesn't agree though. The 6-time world champion said that Ricciardo is far too talented to be a third driver, and he's earned the right to be amongst us all racing. He might have earned his place, but if there aren't any left, he can't make one appear. Ricciardo suggested he could take a year out of the sport to consider his future, and that might be just what he needs. After Fernando Alonso struggled with his time at McLaren, he took 3 years away from the sport to compete in 24 Hours of Le Mans and the FIA World Endurance Championship, winning both. Last year, he came storming back to F1 with Alpine, and as the oldest driver on the grid, has proven that age is just a number. So even if Ricciardo isn't fighting for a world championship next year, it doesn't mean that we've seen the last of the honey badger. So why does Häkkinen think that this is the end for Ricciardo? Not everyone is optimistic about Ricciardo taking some time away from the sport. Two-time world champion Mika Häkkinen has warned Ricciardo about returning after taking a break. Häkkinen is speaking from experience, admitting that their situations are very different. He said he had already achieved all his goals of winning the world championship, and towards the end of his career, he felt how much mental and physical energy the sport demanded and knew he wasn't quite there anymore. But for Ricciardo, Häkkinen thinks that his performance has been dropping, and people are not sure if he's quick enough. On top of that, Häkkinen thinks we aren't getting the whole story about why Ricciardo isn't as fast as he used to be.
It shows that it really is a struggle, but to have such a big margin again, it's remains a mystery.
He doesn't think the honey badger is going flat out anymore, which means he's not giving it his all. And that is when a driver needs to hang up the boots. Ricciardo's younger competitors like Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, and Lando Norris are always pushing the limits of their cars.
They go down the inside, and Lebose, nice opportunist move from Lando Norris.
That was what Ricciardo was known for earlier in his career, and even dubbed the last of the late breakers. At this point, though, he could have too many thoughts while inside the cockpit, and one of them is probably if he should retire. Next, Jenson Button doesn't think Ricciardo has checked out yet. Once upon a time, Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen were teammates.
I've only met you, but I haven't seen you in
Luckily,
it's a bit late, but congrats.
But this year, their fates couldn't have been more different, and nowhere was it more clear than at the United States Grand Prix. While Verstappen sailed ahead to claim his 13th victory of the season after winning the World Championship, Ricciardo was nowhere near finishing in the points. He started in 15th and couldn't improve his position, falling to 16th by the checkered flag. Ricciardo's tone already sounded defeated over the team radio at the end of the race, but in his post-race interview, he looked well and truly depressed. He commented on the inconsistency in lap times and lack of pace, and that the race had been no fun. He said, "When you think it can't get worse, it does. I don't know how I'm continuing to continue because painful is an understatement."
We tried quite long as a collective to try and make this work.
This remark hits most fans emotionally. Ricciardo is usually known for his shining smile and pranks in the paddock, so to see him at an all-time low is difficult to watch.
Yeah, it's, you know, obviously it's not the result we wanted.
Former world champion Jenson Button noted that the Aussie might look defeated, but he doesn't think that Ricciardo mentally checked out just yet. Though nothing is going right for Ricciardo, he needs to enjoy his time driving if he wants to continue in F1.
It's going to be 5th and 6th for McLaren. Daniel Ricciardo comes across the line now.
According to Button, Ricciardo working as a third driver just doesn't make sense. Do you think that Ricciardo should take a role as a reserve driver, or should he retire now? Let us know in the comments below.
make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again at the next one.